Many workers' lives have been abruptly upended by the coronavirus pandemic as job losses in tourism, air travel, food and drink, or any other industries hit those both on fixed contracts and in the informal sector. From employees making a comfortable living to others just scraping by, people around the world are confronting anxiety over how to feed their families and shame at being forced to seek handouts amid growing poverty. The IMF says that the world GDP is set to plunge about 5% this year from the crisis sparked by the global pandemic and warns that low-income households and unskilled workers are the most affected by this. AFP met people in France, Mexico, Ukraine, Spain, Colombia, and the United States who are or fear they soon will be without work and spoke of their despair, sacrifices, dashed hopes and fears for any of the upcoming future, and plunged into a precariousness. I've slipped into a state of insecurity, says Frenchman Xavier Chergoy, who's 44, who for 10 years who's been a temp worker filling in at a Paris restaurant when they were short-staffed. The married father of two made a monthly income of somewhere between $2,062 to $2,978, and in a really good month could sometimes earn up to $4,000. But as soon as France locked down, the work stopped and the family is surviving on the state aid. I'm not sure how yours work, but they're saying that basically they're getting 875 euros for the month. So that because this is like European money, I don't know how all that shit works. He's been able to meet his monthly rent of 950 euros since March, but not for the electricity. He hasn't been able to meet his monthly rent of 950 euros since March, and he's not been able to make the electricity bill for the past 3 months. Although he's managed to keep up his $250 euro car loan pay repayment, the family's holiday in the Southwest is now off the cards. He said, "We've lost everything psychologically. You have to cope with it." He told AFP, but his wife is suffering from depression, and he's just holding up for September when he hopes that his business will resume, and virus permitting. Basically, hopefully the virus isn't there. And says a forced career about turn. This person dreamed of becoming a pilot. 26-year-old Colombian Roger Ordonez had been working as a flight attendant for Avianca, or something like that, I don't know how you say that, since 2017, but studying trying to get his wings. You get used to a certain lifestyle because you have a good salary and you can travel, he said. He's visited various countries in the region and the U.S. in recent years and took his family for their first trip abroad. At the end of March, at the airline's request, he agreed to take a 2 weeks unpaid leave, which was then extended. 2 months later, he learned that his temporary contract would not be renewed after it ended on June 30th. In the meantime, the company he was flying for filed for bankruptcy. Ordonez had to abandon his pilot studies, and he can no longer help his family out with the bills. He says he's been looking for work, but it's difficult because my sector is tourism, and it's the most affected by the COVID-19, he said. But he's thinking of retraining, perhaps in management, trade, or sales, that he says. Also, food bank shame. To fill the fridge and feed her student son, daughter, and grandson, Sonia Herrera has no choice but to rely on the food bank. She says it makes her a bit ashamed to ask for help, the 52-year-old Honduran who lives in the Spanish capital said. People look and there's the guilt of wondering if maybe others need it more, she said. As a domestic worker, she earned a monthly 480 euros until her employers in central Madrid let her go the day after the Spain's lockdown began. As an undocumented immigrant, she cannot claim state aid. The whole family lives on about 600 euros in unemployment benefit that her daughter Alejandra, 32, received after losing her job as a cook in a nursery, which had to close during confinement. With a few savings that left in their bank account, they scrape by. But little pleasures that you notice when you lose them, such as occasionally going out for an ice cream, are gone, and that the Cat Bellows operation had to be put back. The end of the month scares me more than the virus you have to eat after all, Herrera said. Total shock. Ukrainian IT specialist Natalia Marashko, 39, was due for a promotion after 4 years as a senior quality control engineer at an American travel company called Fairportal. When the pandemic hit, about 15 employees were dismissed in March. on March 31st, but she thought her job was safe as her bosses had reassured her. However, the next day, she was given a 2 weeks notice, and she says, "I thought it was at first a stupid April Fool's joke." She said, "It was a total shock. Marashko's computer skills placed her in a rarefied group that can make several thousand euros a month in Ukraine compared to an average salary in the country of around 300 euros. She was able to afford a cleaner. Trips to the beautician, and new clothes from one day to the next. Her life changed beyond recognition. Now she's living off of savings and odd jobs. Last month, the mom of two teenage kids, also looks at her 73-year-old mother. After her 73-year-old mother, who's making 600 euros, her job hunting has been fruitless, and she limits her spending to the absolute minimum. She says, "One thing I haven't cut is my psychotherapist." She said, since losing her job, she's had trouble sleeping and suffers anxiety. Living in fear, Maria Sidil dreads hearing that she'll be among those to lose her jobs at a French shoe company called Andre, which filed for bankruptcy on March 21st before going into receivership. Under the only takeover offer on the table, just half of the 450 staff would be kept on. She's worried that at her age of 54 and having spent all her working life with Andre, she'll have trouble finding a new job. She says, "I have customers who want my fitted for shoes when they were very little and who come by to get their children fitted today," she said. One of her two daughters died last year at the age of 29 due to brain cancer, she said. "Unfortunately, I had my work relationships with the customers that helps. After 30 years, she still earns the minimum wage of 1,250 euros a month. Just over 1,000 euros goes on rent for their flat in the Morgana suburb of Paris. You need two salaries to cover it. My husband is unemployed, but he's younger than me. He should find a job," she said. "I'll take anything if I'm laid off, even if it means cleaning houses. I'll find something." Alone at a bar. The bar stalls at Cafe Philly, the Mediterranean restaurant in Washington where Zach Hoffman works, are now mostly empty, as customers prefer to sit outside. "I don't feel like I'm back to work. I don't have bar guests. The restaurant's never full because it can't be," the 28-year-old said. Restaurants have been Hoffman's life since he took his first job as a prep cook at the age of 15. But 6 years ago, he realized that he preferred working behind the bar where the customer is always close and making new friends. Never a bad thing as a candidate for the local area council was easy. He used to make up to $40 an hour, mostly from tips. But after a period of unemployment when business shut down as the pandemic intensified in mid-March, he now makes at most $25 an hour, which is still not bad. What worries him most, though, is whether local businesses will have to close again, in which case he believes most would never reopen, or whether he or his co-workers will be the next to get the virus. "All of our interactions are kind of governed by this anxiety of possible death, which is not really where we want to be," he said. Pushed to the bottom, Mexican tour guide Jesus Yepes has been sleeping at a homeless refugee place after being evicted from his rented accommodation in the capital's historic center early this month. "I was born on a cozy mattress and in a Coyoacan, a Bohemian district of Mexico City where Frida Kahlo and Leon Trotsky lived, but the vagaries of life have pushed me to the bottom," the 65-year-old said. Before the coronavirus, he would earn up to about 500 pesos, about $22, which is equivalent to about $22 in American money, leading an hour-long tour. But Mexico's museums and galleries shut at the end of March as high season began, and Yepes has struggled to like many others in the tourism sector, which make up 9% of the GDP. Early on, he had some savings, but they're gone, and tourists are not yet back. His qualifications in architecture, into international relations, English, and French are of little use to him now. "All that I ask is to get through this and find a retirement home to grow old in dignity." He's like, "I'm not ill. I'm just tired of life and basically what has to happen."